Hello guys, welcome to this 18th episode of the Built a Web API in ASP.NET Core 3.1 and consume it using an MVC client also in ASP.NET Core. So for viewing the completed application in action, please watch the introduction video again in the part 1 with link in the description of this video. In this episode, I shall walk you through creating the customer controller. So in this series of tutorials, all the episodes are in continuation and are being built on top of the previous ones. Hence, it is highly recommended to view them before viewing the current one. It is suggested to view the entire duration of the video in all these episodes to get the best out of them, and I welcome all constructive comments and shall endeavor to reply to them. Finally, an appeal to please subscribe and share this channel and click the bell notification icon to get the latest in the uploads. So now let's see the learning outcomes. So the learning outcome is pretty much the same. By the end of this lecture, we shall learn how to complete the customer control. Now let's see the customer control in action that we'll be building by the end of this lecture. So let's click on this IIS Express to run this web API. Now the web API is running, and this API running is coming from the home controller. And then if I write the URL /API/customer and click on enter, it will bring the customer, all the customers it will return from the database. Now it will return all the customers from the database, as you know, with ADO.NET and stored procedure and in a JSON format. So if you wish to filter it further by an ID, say 19, it's the first record, you'll get all the record in the JSON format. So now let's switch over to Visual Studio and start coding the controllers, customer controller, so that we come to this learning outcome. So let's now click the controller, right click the controller and add controller. And MVC controller empty. It's not, it is the API. Okay, API controller empty. Okay, so click on add. Here I change the name to, instead of values, I'll make it customer. Customer controller class. So here is my customer controller, which also derives from the controller base class, with a route attribute API/controller and another attribute API controller to mark it where it is it's an API controller as opposed to any other type of controller like an MVC controller. All right, so let's start writing. Now, having done the home controller, we see that there are some using statements that are necessary. So I'll bring in a couple of more using statements. So these are using Microsoft.ASP.core.hosting and using API.models, because I have to refer to the models folder. All right, so at the moment, only one is being used, Microsoft.ASP.core.MVC, but you will see that these some of them will be used. Okay, we will see that later. So I'll have to create a private iCustomer repository and call this customer repository, because I'll be using the customer repository in the customer controller class. iCustomer repository type, name this customer repository. And then customer controller, this is a public constructor. So CTOR to generate the constructor, empty constructor, and then fill this iCustomer repository. call this repo, and I think I don't need anything else at the moment to pass, and then assign this customer repository to repo, passed in dependency object repo. Okay, and then the next method is, it's an HTTP get, and this will be getting the customers, get customers. So HTTP get verb, so it is a retrieve type of operation, select operation. So public, and what this will return? This will return an IEnumerable of customer. So IEnumerable customer, and call this method get customers. Basically it will get all the customers from the repository, get customers. Okay, and then I'll have to fill here. It will be simply one statement, one line of code, return. Now this customer repository, which is injected as a constructor, constructor parameter or dependency injection, so this will be used here. So return customer repository dot, now get all customers, and this is a method, so empty pair of parenthesis, and then to list, so I need to get the list, which is of type IEnumerable. Okay, so if you look at this, this will return a list of T. Okay, and because list is actually a type IEnumerable, so it will return the IEnumerable of customers. Right, and then the next method is HTTP get with ID, get the customer with an ID. So here the only difference will be HTTP get, that part will be the same, and within a pair of braces, circular braces, and there is a pair of curly brace, and within that curly brace we will have this ID. We are passing ID, and that will be enclosed within quotes, pair of quotes. Okay, and this will be public. What this will return? This will return a customer object, customer, get customer by ID. I'll take that, but this is by ID. So get customer by ID, and I will pass that ID, int ID, and in order to satisfy the return statement will be return, again using the customer repository injected object dot. Now here, as you have seen, that we have got a get customer by ID, and we have to pass the argument passed on to this HTTP get verb, that is the ID, and that's it. And then we'll go for this HTTP post verb to add a customer, and that's a post type of operation. You're adding a customer in an empty form. HTTP post, HTTP post, to return customer again, and it's a create method. Now here I'll have to enter from body within single quotes, because this customer will be from the details of the customer will be from the body. Now this from body specifies that a parameter or property should be bound using the request body. Okay, So it is suggestive of what it does. So from body customer, and this customer object is named as customer. All right, and then return again the customer repository in use dot, now we have got a add customer method, and then pass in this customer object which is passed to this method by as a parameter. Okay, that's it. And then we have for the update, this is the insert operation. For the update it will be HTTP. Can you guess what type of verb it will be? It is HTTP put. All right, HTTP put. So here it will be again public, and this will be again customer, it will be returning. And then this is an update operation. I'll simply call this update without going into any other complications. Now the difference between this HTTP post and this HTTP put is that here it will be from the form instead of body. This will be from form. So that means it specifies that a parameter or property should be bound using the form data in the request body, because the user has to fill a form. So it will be getting that information about the customer from the filled in form. Previously it was from the body. Okay. Customer. Okay, and then return customer repository again using that object, injected object dot update customer, and passing in the customer object. Right. So finally we have come to this HTTP delete operation. So delete operation is similar to get operation, only thing that it deletes the record from the database, and here it will be HTTP delete verb with an ID. HTTP delete, and then a pair of empty braces, circular braces, which encloses a pair of curly braces, and that has got an ID value passed, and this pair of curly brace is enclosed within double quotes. All right, so because we are passing the ID. Now this can be simply written as public, and this returns just null. It deletes the record from the database, and pass this integer ID, and then simply return customer repository. Is not return. I don't need any return because it's a void customer repository dot delete customer, and passing the ID. Well, that's it, and let's build this application with the Control Shift and B.